largely because of events like this, meeting college students up close on campuses across the country. Police say roughly 3,000 people showed up for this one, all watching and listening as it happened. Kirk was answering a question about mass shootings.
Do you know how many transgender Americans have been mass shooters over the last 10 years?
Too many.
Okay, now 5 is a lot, right? I'm gonna give you some credit. Do you know how many mass shooters there have been in America over the last 10 years?
Counting or not counting gang violence?
Great.
Kirk is rushed into an SUV and taken to the hospital. Panicked crowds ran as police jumped in.
And let's be advised, UVU in Orem has had an active shooter at the Charlie Kirk event. We're getting several calls. We're trying to get more information.
In the scramble after Kirk was shot, video taken from inside a building captures what appears to be someone running across a rooftop. That rooftop is this building, called the Losi Center, less than 200 yards away from the spot where Kirk was hit. If that runner was the shooter, he would have been positioned about here. From this shot, you can see the rooftop of the Losi building is pretty easy to access. It's connected to another building by an elevated walkway, which, as you can see, is only separated from the roof by a railing. Aerial footage after the shooting shows police tape on the roof of the Losi building. And at about 12:36 p.m., an officer describes a possible suspect.
He's wearing jeans, black shirt, black mask, long rifle. Is on top of the building on the far north side, just east of the library, wearing jeans, black shirt, black vest.
6 hours later, Utah Valley University issued an all clear, saying the threat is over. Charlie Kirk, the 31-year-old father of 2 young children, did not survive.
CNN senior law enforcement analyst Andrew McCabe is here with more. Andrew, it is unfortunate that we keep meeting during these tragedies that we've covered all too frequently now. Political shootings, political tragedies and assassinations like this. Charlie Kirk was not an elected official, but he was a very popular influencer at the age of 31, literally helping skyrocket President Trump to another term in the White House. And with that came a lot of support and a lot of hate, as is typical in our current environment. From everything that we've heard now from law enforcement officials, from the photos that they've released now of this suspect some 20 hours later, how certain are you that they will be able to capture him?
I'm very confident that they will be able to capture this person eventually. It may not be as quickly as we would all like, but the FBI is extraordinarily good at this. And the steps that they have taken so far, each one of the things that I thought they might do, they have clearly done and successfully in terms of figuring out where this person took the shot from, collecting actual evidence, physical evidence at that site, identifying the person, then searching out every source of available video in a way to not just identify the person leaving that site, but showing them leave the campus completely, which is likely what took them to the wooded area where they ultimately recovered the rifle. So they are doing the things that we expect and need them to do. And now that the images of the shooter or the suspected shooter have been put out, it's really simply a matter of time before they have that person fully identified. And then it's just a straight up manhunt, which we've seen all too often lately.
Something that also stood out to me from officials today was the message that they did not view the suspect as a threat to the public at large, saying that this was a targeted shooting. The fact that the suspect remains at large and appears to have been quite a marksman with one fatal shot. Do you support that statement that people who may encounter him or in the public in general aren't at risk at this point?
No, I don't. But to be fair, I'm not 100% sure that response in the press conference, I think what they were thinking was this assassination appeared to be a single act of political violence, that there isn't, in other words, we're not caught up in a conspiracy of multiple assassinations. But your point is absolutely spot on. This person presents a grave danger to the public and any individual he might come across, simply in light of the fact that he knows if he is apprehended, he's going to prison for a long time, and he might, in fact, face the death penalty. So this person is desperate to stay out of detention to avoid arrest, and anyone he views as an impediment to his ability to escape, he could turn on and interact with violently. This is somebody who just killed somebody yesterday. Acts of violence are something that come easy to this person, apparently, and so I would advise the utmost caution.
We heard officials say that they had good video footage of the individual and the suspect. They had a detailed timeline of when they believe he arrived at the school, at the campus, and when he moved to the roof before jumping off the roof and then fleeing to a neighborhood, and also recovering the rifle and collecting footwear impression and palm imprints for analysis, and said that given all of that, they would not be releasing, or did not feel that they needed to release his photo, thus at 9 a.m. this morning when we had that press conference, and said that they would be reaching out to the public if they needed any more information. What transpired, in your view, between 9 a.m. and noon when they ultimately decided to release this picture?
Yeah, so they specifically referred in the press conference the fact that they had technologies that they were going to try to use to identify the photograph, and they wanted to do that before they released the photograph to the public. I suspect those technologies were facial recognition software and other fairly new AI-driven platforms that can be used essentially to very quickly compare an image with known images, most of which are culled from the internet and from social media postings. And that software, those techniques are controversial because many see them as an invasion of privacy, or there are allegations that there are biases implicitly built into those algorithms and that can result in false identifications. But nevertheless, those tools have also proved productive for law enforcement in the past to go from a picture of somebody you don't know to all of a sudden, the ability to compare it with several photographs of people who have been identified. My guess is they used something like that, and they didn't get quite the results that they were hoping for. And so now we've gone full crowdsourcing of the images. And, as we've seen since the Boston Marathon bombing many years ago, this can be a very effective way to quickly identify someone in a photograph who's currently unknown to law enforcement.
That's what happened with Luigi Mangione, too, the United Healthcare killer who killed the CEO of that healthcare company and then was later found, I believe, at a McDonald's. So hopefully,
that's absolutely right. Yep.
Hopefully we will get some more information as well. Andrew McCabe, thank you so much. Really appreciate your time.
Thanks, Bianna.
Well, we turn to Florida now, where the trial of Ryan Ruth began a short time ago. Ruth is accused of attempting to assassinate Donald Trump at his golf course last year. The defendant has decided to represent himself. Prosecutors are expected to bring forward testimony from an eyewitness and statements from people who say they sold Ruth the rifle. We will bring you updates from the trial as we get them in. And we'll be right back with more.
Help us interpret, if you can, as investigators say they have rapid developments, delay a press conference. Under what circumstances would investigators do so?
Well, I think that there's lots of different reasons, and one could speculate why the delay in the press conference. I think you have to take into effect that it's very possible that the incoming director Patel is coming in, that they are holding off the press conference so Director Patel could attend the press conference. That's a possibility. And there's obviously, like I said, one of the things that I do find interesting is the fact that they put out the $100,000 reward, the photograph. And for me, my opinion is they're trying to generate leads. So there's a lot of what they're saying is rapid developing situation, but no arrests. So I think that there would be a significant, you'd see overt, officers moving in different directions. So I think that there's lots of different signals here going out there. It's definitely developing. It's an investigation that's rolling in process.
Investigators have said they have what they described as good video of the suspected shooter, but other experts have noted that releasing the photos indicates they have not been able to do a positive ID of the shooter using technologies such as facial recognition. Given the extent of the images they have, does that surprise you?
No, it really doesn't surprise me. Putting the photograph out there once they've positively identified, unlike yesterday where we had multiple, it was a rapidly developing situation and multiple persons were being questioned as to possible shooters. Now that they seem to have focused in on this individual and putting his photograph out there and getting more eyes on the situation, it appears that they're creating more possibilities. They're creating to generate leads, to have people call in and say, I know that individual. He was a student, sat next to me. He wore that T-shirt. And they're really remarkable things.
I guess just, and excuse my ignorance on this, are the photos they have too grainy, or is his face, enough of his face covered, that they couldn't do a facial recognition check that might say, pull up a driver's license or a student ID?
I think it's pretty difficult. Not going to be impossible, but I think it's rather difficult with the black hat, the black sunglasses, and the black T-shirt to really give a definitive look. Most likely, they'll get the age, they'll get obviously the race, and they'll get a lot of it. But they would get a huge, vast array of individuals, and they'll use that database to cross-reference against individuals now that may be students at the school who are familiar with the buildings. It's going to take a little bit of time to do the facial recognition. But one of the most important things about putting this face out there is you've multiplied exponentially the number of people that are looking out the windows, looking in their neighborhood, trying to see if there's a suspicious person, and those people calling law enforcement with a tip. That's the big difference, is putting more people eyes on the ground, not just law enforcement.
Is that what often breaks cases like this? A tip coming in?
Look at what happened in the Luigi Mangione case. All it takes is, and you putting pressure on him, you put pressure on the shooter. He is now nervous. Not before the photograph was put out, he was just nervous that law enforcement that would be looking for him. Now he's going to be hyper nervous about every single person on the street. Now that if that pushes him and makes him pass the braking limit, he'll make a mistake. And when he makes a mistake, that's the individual. That's where we capture him, where he gets hungry, he's tired, he's cold, he makes a mistake, and someone sees something, and they call up law enforcement and say, hey, I think Luigi Mangione made a mistake at the McDonald's. He lowered his mask when he was flirting with a girl. Those are the mistakes that the investigators need.
I can only imagine you're still processing what a horrible event to witness. Tell us what that moment was like in that crowd there.
Well, I actually want to clarify. I arrived on campus just after, but I have a lot of media colleagues who are local and did witness it and are, like you said, still processing what they saw. I arrived on campus just after, as people were really just in shock. A lot of people were running off campus calling their loved ones. I was seeing police swarming campus, trying to close off all of the roads leading in and out. There were helicopters flying overhead, police dogs everywhere, and the SWAT team pulling up just around the time that I did. And so I really just witnessed the utter chaos of the aftermath.
Tell us what's going on in that community right now with a shooter still on the loose.
Well, a lot of roads are still closed. The campus is still shut down to everyone who doesn't have a student ID. I have tried to go door to door and speak to people about the fears that they're experiencing, but a lot of people are just keeping their doors closed, feeling very worried. And there's still quite a police presence on campus as we're waiting for updates and as they're searching and exploring all the evidence available. And so it's just a little bit eerily quiet on campus right now. And there's definitely tension in the community.
Listen, there are a lot of accusations going around now, as you know, on social media, even from political leaders. On the campus there and in the community, is the mood one of, let's find a way out of this? Let's deal with each other calmly and peacefully, or are you seeing those divisions there on campus as well?
I would say we're not really seeing those divisions here. I've seen people on a lot of street corners holding up signs that say "Rest in peace, Charlie." Flags are at half staff here. They were yesterday, not just for 9/11. There's just a somber mood around. A lot of students saying that this is a community where they have always felt safe, and yesterday changed that for a lot of people.
Well, Hannah, we're sorry you had to witness the aftermath of this. We do appreciate you sharing your experience of it.
Hello, a warm welcome. I'm Richard Quest, in for Issa Suarez. Tonight, we begin with our breaking news. The FBI has released photos of someone they're describing as a person of interest in the murder of the conservative activist Charlie Kirk. These images were posted by the FBI's Salt Lake City office. Authorities are asking for the public's help to identify this person who they believe may have a connection to the shooting. Investigators say they've also recovered a high-powered bolt-action rifle, telling us the phrases were scrawled on the weapons and the ammunition. In addition, the FBI collected a footprint, a palm print and a forearm print that are now being analysed. The 31-year-old Mr. Charles Kirk was married, father of 2 young children.
Last night I communicated with Erica. The family's devastated. As a commissioner of public safety, as a father, as a husband, I can only imagine what that family's going through. The heinous event that happened yesterday is not Utah. This is not what we're known for.
Now, Mr. Kirk was a very close ally of President Trump. At a Pentagon ceremony today marking the anniversary of 9/11, the US president said he plans to honor Kirk's memory.
I have no doubt that Charlie's voice and the courage he put into the hearts of countless people, especially young people, will live on. I'm pleased to announce that I will soon be awarding Charlie Kirk posthumously the Presidential Medal of Freedom.
Now, our Senior Justice Department is Evan Veras. He joins me now. Bring me up to date, please.
Well, Richard, at this hour, the manhunt is on. The FBI is still essentially asking the public for help because they clearly have not been able to identify this person. They've had these images for some time now. This morning at a press conference, they announced that they would not be releasing the video or images of it because investigators were still working on it. And clearly, in the intervening hours, they decided it was better off for the public to start at least trying to provide some updates, some tips that they could work off of. And you see those images are taken from what appear to be surveillance camera or video camera of perhaps a hallway or a stairwell. What we know is that the shooter was on this rooftop about 200 yards away, 180 meters away from where Charlie Kirk was sitting. We know that he made a getaway, appeared to have thrown away that rifle when he was making his getaway. It was wrapped in a towel. He also recovered a screwdriver, which they think might indicate that he may have disassembled the firearm at some point in order to conceal it. You can do that putting it in your clothing or perhaps in a bag to make it less noticeable. Again, these are things that investigators are really just surmising, Richard, at this point, because they don't have a person in custody. They don't have more information. And as to those writings, we're told that there's a variety of things that were written that investigators are really trying to determine and trying to interpret, really, trying to use the internet, trying to see whether it leads to any other clues. Again, because time is of the essence, they need the public to provide any video, any other information that could help them narrow the focus of this investigation, because really time is of the essence.
Evan, I'm grateful. Come back when there's more.
Thanks.
Now, our senior national security analyst, Juliet Kimes, with me. I'm remembering, of course, when I see those photographs being put out, I remember the murder of the United Healthcare CEO, the speed with which, once we had those photos out, somebody in a fast food restaurant was able to recognize. I'm assuming this is how the authorities are hoping the process will work. This picture, of course, unlike the other one, isn't quite as clear, but it does. It's a strong starting point in a sense.
That's exactly right. It's telling that they release this because, as Evan was saying, it does suggest that they cannot put a name to this picture, and this happened also with the United Healthcare assassin, as well as, remember, the Boston Marathon bombers. And so you're sort of crowdsourcing at this stage. That's not great because obviously, it just becomes less manageable for the FBI. I'll admit I had thought this morning that they clearly knew who it was and they were just on a manhunt. Now they just don't have a name to it. I will say with the picture, obviously his eyes are covered with these glasses and the hat. But that physique is unique, tall, lanky. The chin is chiseled. If you're a parent or a friend or a roommate, you would certainly be able to identify them. And I think that that's their hope at this stage. They need to find him quickly. The oxygen that someone on the run gets from the crazies and those incitable and those who either want to do it again or seek revenge feeds off of this hunt. In other words, the longer it takes. So the FBI really needs to focus on this one. And there were some missteps yesterday.
The FBI was meant to hold a news conference in about 40 minutes. But now they're saying, due to the rapid developments in our investigation, we're going to suspend the news conference. That could mean everything and it could mean nothing.
That's right. So I had heard about that press conference and was going to be with you for the hour for it. But clearly, it could mean one of only two things. One is there's just nothing new to report, or two, this person is in custody. They'll make an announcement in a couple soon after. We just simply don't know. The FBI in the last 24 hours the FBI headquarters has been getting ahead of FBI Utah. I'm glad that it's sort of back in FBI Utah because you really need that local feel. You need that local community outreach. You need to engage all local law enforcement. But of course, at this stage now, the community, he looks young. He looks like a college student. Someone knows him. And the goal is that that person comes forward and does what they need to do, which is alert authorities.
Because of the appalling nature of this political violence, it's understandable that politicians at all levels, city, state, local, federal, presidential, are understandably involved. But how much more difficult does it make it when you do have Washington in all its glory interfering?
Yeah, it does make it more difficult, and also it's worse than making it difficult. It can be misleading. So yesterday, the second arrest or the second person of interest was an Arab American. He was conservative. He was a supporter of Charlie Kirk. So if you're thinking, okay, well, my assassin is from this pool of people, you are going to miss who it may be. We see now with the picture that this looks like a Caucasian male in his 20s. So you can divert it. The other is sort of more essential into the larger issue of political assassination. We now know, right, whether it is Democrats that are targeted or Republicans that are targeted, that this thing is now not containable. And the more that politicians, as Donald Trump did last night, try to create a narrative.
Juliet, can I just interrupt you just to clarify, because that's when you say it's not containable, what do you mean?
I mean that what makes America unique, other democracies have it too, is that you can engage even disgustingly into the political arena, as some people found Charlie Kirk's ideas, into the political arena without fear of violence or in this case, death. That engagement is what makes a democracy and America special. That we've had periods like this in the past, and it required in some ways an exhaustion about what politics had become for there to be a collective shaming of this. This is why politicians who are trying to create both policy and other narratives out this, as the president did last night, right? In terms of it's a certain person, it's liberals. I know who it is. We don't know who it is. And even if it were, it doesn't matter. We now know that it's going to take a collective focus on the violence and not the motivation or the ideology to be able to sort of retain this American ability of having a rough and tumble politics. We've had this for a long time.
Fascinating. I mean, it's where we go from here is something you and I will talk about a great deal more in the days and weeks. I'm grateful.
I have one theory.
Go on.
I have one theory, which is it's going to take us. It's going to take citizens. We may not get it from our government, but the sentence "political assassination is bad" ends with a period.
Yes.
You don't have to say "but" or it's a period. So that's what I urge everyone who's watching. It's a simple sentence.
Do you know that's beautifully put, elegantly put, and very difficult to follow through in the febrile atmosphere of today. Juliet, we'll talk more and certainly explore that angle more. Politicians from the US and around the world are reacting to the murder of Charlie Kirk. In the United States, President Trump expressed his grief and anger, and that has been echoed by many in the administration. They knew and worked with and had voted with and planned with Charlie Kirk. And so this is more than just bystander as such. The administration and many of those involved with it are very, very intimately familiar with Charlie Kirk and as friend, mentor. And the Democrats, such as California Governor Gavin Newsom, to Juliet's point, immediately came out with a statement calling his death sick and reprehensible. Giorgia Meloni of Italy has said it is a profound wound for democracy, whilst Hungary's Prime Minister Viktor Orban described Kirk's murder as hatred from the left. Now, arguably, of course, that statement is doing exactly what Juliet says is where the road down which one should not go, but that's for discussions later. Joining us from Washington, Kristen Holmes. Look, you heard Juliet, I hope, just a moment or two ago. The phrase political violence must not happen ends with a period, and there is no follow-on. The White House is negotiating that sentence, in a sense, in how they are reacting to this.
I think, Richard, there's a lot of anger right now. Yesterday was a lot of devastation. There was a lot of confusion. There was a lot of disbelief. And now you are seeing some anger. It's really, if you're talking about where we go from here, that is yet to be seen. But I do think we're still so early in what happened that the grief is still overwhelming for so many of these people. I mean, just to let you know, it's not as though this is just a person that they tangentially knew. I was told by sources that President Trump considered Charlie Kirk part of the family. We saw Don Jr. talking about how Charlie Kirk was like a little brother to him. They believed that he was incredibly smart and influential, and that he had his finger on the pulse of their movement, the movement that was started by President Trump, even more so than some of the people who serve on cabinet positions here in Washington. So it's still very raw. They're watching very closely to see what comes from this investigation. I think the whole country is really watching to see what comes from this investigation. And I think that's where the minds are at this moment.
So just let's do some event stuff.
And as the country
J.D. Vance, the
risks
Vice President, was meant to be at 9/11 in New York, but of course he's flown out.
Authorities are pleading with people to stay off social media.
He will be accompanying
Russia, China, all
remains
over the
on Air
world
Force
that are
Two
trying
back.
to
Is
instill
that correct?
disinformation and encourage
Yes,
violence.
so
Trump adding his voice to the chorus,
He was in
urging
Utah.
citizens to proceed with peace.
He was an advocate of nonviolence. That's the way I'd like to see people respond.
The response the FBI is Kirk's coffin made it home to Phoenix today. His
The FBI is offering a $100,000 reward for information.
The FBI has tonight released new video
relying on are tip-offs, admitting tonight they have no idea.
I thought it was appropriate to have a moment of a prayer and reflection for Charlie Kirk. As I was approaching the rostrum, people's phones were saying that he had been deceased, but it wasn't formally called yet. The emotion was very high in the room. We had a moment of silence, and after that, a member stood to be recognized and said, "Let's have open prayer," and that started a debate. And people felt like it was being politicized on the Democrat side of the aisle, I guess. There were some shouts and groans, and then the Republicans responded, and it turned into a little bit of chaos there. We had to bring order back and get back to it. But I think that was a reflection of the emotion of the moment, the real sense of kind of shock that people were feeling, I think justifiably, understandably. But I think after that, I think a lot of people will reflect upon things they said and did in that moment, and they probably regret it.
Joining Scrolling through my social media feed, on the one hand, I see comments pushing for unity from former presidents, and right after that, really horrific language, blaming one side or the other, graphic video. Has that played a role in who even some of our elected officials feel like they have to talk to?
Absolutely. And let's face it, social media is where a lot of people go to hate. They say things on people. Some people will say things on social media they would never say to one's face or in some kind of a public setting. They just wouldn't do it. And so the amount of garbage that is spewed out on social media, I think, is contributing significantly to this terrible political discourse that's occurring in the United States. And people are just, again, just speaking, particularly on the fringes. These people on the fringes, on both the left and the right, they engage in nasty rhetoric, and then they take these heated conversations and excessive, this rhetoric is just so awful, and some of them unfortunately act out on it, and that's where we are. I don't know what happened with this particular situation with Charlie Kirk, except to say that he was a victim just for exercising his First Amendment right. Whether you agree with him or disagree with his politics, he was exercising his right, and now his poor wife is a widow, and his young children have no father, and your heart just goes out to these folks, regardless of where you are on the political spectrum. So I wish I had an answer, but social media is a big part of the dialogue that has been so decimated in this country.
And it's the worst type of dialogue in so many regards. Whether you liked or disdained the views of Charlie Kirk, I think, as we have noted, he should be commended for taking those conversations directly to the people and having these kind of face-to-face conversations and debates, as opposed to just taking to social media, where he also had a huge following. But, we live in a world where something like that is now viewed as brave, unfortunately, given the rise in political violence. Charlie Dent, thank you. Really appreciate the time.
Thank you. Thank you, Bianca.
And controversial and inflammatory for a large portion